Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the Monroe County Council to order. Order. It's Tuesday, April 25th, and I would like to note for the record that all council members are here present in the Nat U Hill room. And with that, I will just go ahead and move. It's okay to skip the roll call, right? We're all here. I acknowledged it. All right.
You spoke it for the record.
I spoke it into the record. We're here. We are going to move to the adoption of the agenda then. Does anyone wish to add or remove an item from tonight's agenda?
Did we already remove the item from the commissioner's office? Yeah. That's already been removed.
No.
Oh, it's not.
Item 6, right?
Item 6? No?
So we need to, what,
We,
number
May
6?
20
right, we need to
23rd.
remove.
May 23rd.
Okay.
May 23rd.
Or
Okay.
actually, we need to table it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, council, I move that we table item number 6, Auditor Commissioner approval for a new account line for the American Rescue Plan Fund to the next council work session on May, I'm sorry, what was it? 23rd, 2023.
Second.
Great, thank you for noticing that. We just need more information before we can make that decision, and I believe Jeff Cockrell is coordinating some information gathering to that effect. Are there any other comments or questions on that amendment? All right. Then all in favor of amending the agenda to remove item 6, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes and agenda is amended. Any other item? No? Good. Okay. Then we will move on to item number 3, which is public comment. And we have a time limit of 3 minutes per speaker, as usual. Do we have anyone from the public wishing to make comment on items not on our agenda this evening? I am not logged into Zoom, so.
There's no one on.
Okay, great. All righty then, that was easy. Let's move to department updates, item 4 on the agenda. We do have an update from our Parks Department, I think. And is Ms. Whitmer on Zoom?
I don't see her.
She's probably shocked that we're already getting to her item at 5:35. Are there any other departments who would like to make an update? Yes, Ms. Gregory.
I believe Auditor Smith and I both have an update tonight. I'll start if that's okay. I just want to note for the record that on April 5th, I forwarded the entire council the encumbrance and reversion reports. So if there are any questions on that, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And yes, Ms. Smith.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
No, you turn it on.
Oh, I was like, I can hear you.
There you go.
How about that? Can you hear me?
That's better.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so good evening. And I would like to remind you guys and everyone that's listening that property taxes are due. They're due May 10th for the spring installment. A lot of people who pay themselves, who don't pay inside a mortgage, escrow, they pay, many of them pay it all in the spring. So I want to remind everybody that that's due Wednesday, May 10th, and you don't have another council meeting between now and then, so this is the appropriate time to mention that. And I also want to explain that the homestead exemption remains. However, the mortgage exemption is going away at the end of this year. So they're going to roll that inside the homestead exemption and increase the homestead exemption so that it does not hurt people who have mortgages and are paying in escrow. So I thought that would be important to tell the public that don't be surprised, this will be the last year you have a mortgage exemption. If you haven't paid your mortgage off or not intending to pay it off this year, you will not see that next year. What you'll see is a differential in homestead exemption. And you can either call our office that puts the exemptions on, Kathy Smith, the auditor, or and the treasurer sitting back there, Jessica McClellan, the treasurer. Either of us can answer questions, or our departments can answer questions regarding exemptions if you would like that. You can call us at any time, and we'll be happy to look at your tax bill and see if you have the exemptions that you really need, that you are really entitled to. Make sure that you have them all, and go over your property if you have questions, and what your tax rate is and how it's calculated. And I'd like to remind everyone that when we do a referendum for schools, that's outside the 1% homestead cap. And that's a little different. So if that's confusing to you, please give me a call. I'll be happy to go over it, or you can come in and I'll sit down with you and do the math with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Does look like Kelly's on now, by the way.
Great.
Kelly Whitmer is now on
Okay, great. Perfect.
virtually.
We'll go ahead and hear from our Parks Department then.
Kelly, go ahead.
She's a panelist.
She's on, Kelly, you're on mute. I'm not sure if. There you are.
For me?
Hello.
Okay, is it my turn? Because I've been having
It's your
computer
turn.
problems. Hello. Okay, all I'm doing here today is MCCSC is requesting that a small section of the Cars Farm Greenway be relocated in order to accommodate a track for the children and an area for the parents to pick up and drop off their children. They will pay for 100% of the new easement to make the new easement, and also 100% of the relocation. I will be bringing you an easement to read hopefully in the next few weeks. Do I have any questions?
Are there any questions for Ms. Whitmer? No, there are no questions for you. I think it's a great way of showing a cooperation between entities. And I appreciate you being really flexible and working with MCCSC on this, because I think it'll really help out the school. I know the elementary school where my kids went had a lot of difficulty trying to navigate traffic for dropping off and picking up. So anything we can do to help, that's great. So when you get the easement information, if you could forward it to us, and we will get you on the next agenda for anything that you need in terms of an approval.
Excellent, and this is Highland Park Elementary. Thank you so much. I'll be seeing you in the next 30 days, hopefully.
Okay, great, thanks. Any other departments for an update? No, all right. Next is council liaison updates.
Were you going to make a comment? Or?
Yes, I will. I will make a council liaison update. But first, does anyone else have one? Ooh, two. I'm going to start here and go. Okay.
Favorite.
Go ahead, Mr. Decker.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to make a comment. The city election is nearly upon us, and that is a city election conducted by the county. And specifically, the clerk alerted me on April 16th that at that time, they still needed both Democratic and Republican poll workers to serve on the bipartisan teams that administer the election. So for the folks listening, when you go to a poll site, you are seeing a Democratic and Republican appointee administering that election locally. And that is a check on themselves, checks on each other, much like you have a bipartisan election board that administers the election in conjunction with the clerk. They need people that do that, okay? So that there's not just an army of people standing on standby. These are actually community members that administer that. If you're interested in doing that, contact Election Central. Their number is 812-349-2612, 349-2612. And remember, if you have a willingness to help the election happen, the more people that have that willingness, the easier it goes, because Election Day operates from a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you thought about a business that opened once or twice a year from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on volunteers or folks that show up, they need your help. So please come out, Democrats, Republicans, concerned citizens, people that want to make democracy work once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other updates to my left? Yes.
Just a, oh, hello. Used to this being really loud. Just as a, I'll use my mom voice. So I am the liaison for the Public Defender's Office, and I was hoping Ms. Heather Steffel was going to be on the call to give a department update. But since she isn't, and of course she can always come back to council, we got word late last week that their system navigator grant was extended for another year. So I just wanted to give council notice and let everybody know that that is some good news. So, yeah.
That's fantastic news. Thank you. We will go to my right.
Thank you, Madam President. I have 3 quick updates for us today. The first is from the Environmental Commission. President Nolan Hendon has been doing a lot of work recently and will be appearing before the Monroe County Commissioners on May 3rd, which is a week from tomorrow, to have them approve the contract made between Monroe County and Indiana University's Environmental Resilience Institute. At the same time, we'll be welcoming Heider Atich, who will be our McKinney Climate Fellow. We're really excited for him to join us. So that's all going to be happening on May 3rd at the Commissioners, and then that'll come back to the Council at our next meeting. So at that meeting, we'll get to meet Mr. Atich and also hear from Mr. Hendon about everything that's going on here.
Great. Fantastic.
All right. Number 2 is we are really excited about what's happening in community justice in the community, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw that House Bill 1006 went to the governor's desk for signature. Very excited about the potential of that. Also really excited about the potential for Senate Bill 1, so really encouraging folks to pay attention to those bills. My last update is from the Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission. This Friday, we will be in the Monroe County Jail for a tour, talking with staff and inmates alike about issues relating to substance use disorder. We also have been highlighting the coroner data. We talked about that at the last session here. The commissioners are going to talk about it tomorrow, and we're working with our experts on GIS in the surveyor's office to create a dashboard that then we can see updated data about substance use deaths in our community. So moving the ball forward on some interesting things, and hopefully that'll help us create not only fiscal policy, but policy out of the commissioner's office that's related to local data.
Really great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, as many of you know, I serve on the Indiana County Council legislative group through the state, and we've been meeting every Friday and going over legislation that's going through and seeing what will work best for the counties. And when we were discussing House Bill 1006, by the way, that does receive the support of the group, but there's still the questions out there that's not covered having to do with financials and how it actually is going to work, having to do with transportation, how they're going to transport people back and forth, or just who will have the responsibility for that. And I've shared with you before my concern that in the fiscal, they're coming back to say it might affect county government, having to do with the insurance for county employees. Now, I haven't checked out how that might affect us. I'm just saying that was in part of the fiscals. So while I think that there's a lot of things still to be worked out, and that will have to happen as we go along, people haven't really thought about what's going to happen once they transport people here, and they only have so many days to either release them or do something else. well, then are they released here, or is someone supposed to pick them up, or how does that work out? And transport is an expensive proposition, and it also takes our people off of their normal procedures. And it also gives me the questions along with that when we're going through and we're looking at our jail bookings, and we see that we have in the jail pop sheet so many that is being held for the Department of Corrections, some of which have been held for quite some time. And so that's something else, those dollars that should be coming in having to do with the care of folks, that should be in a separate fund, and I've talked with the auditor about that to see if we're keeping track of that, but also why is it that we are still covering so many spaces for Department of Corrections, and how much of this is tied to the fact that we have the parole office right here, the state parole office right here in Monroe County that covers several counties. So does that mean that all those counties are coming back to our county? So when people are looking at jail issues and so forth, I hope you'll also take that into consideration, and how we might make sure that we're using our dollars best to provide services that it appears we're going to be required to do.
Thank you. All right, I do have, go ahead.
I didn't want to,
Pull that close.
I didn't want to interrupt Councilor Hawk because I thought she might be covering this, but the legislature is still dealing with House Bill 1499 regarding food and beverage tax advisory commissions. And it appears that there's still a requirement that some funds be expended by a certain date. And that means that a future CIB, Capital Improvement Board, would need to make decisions about doing that. And my thoughts on this is that a good financial investment would be to have financial advice about bonding and the financing of the expansion project. And that certainly would be well-spent money for the public's interest. And I don't see that this requirement by the legislature is going to hamper our expansion project.
Could I respond?
Of course.
Just when you're looking at that bill, Senator Gaskell did make the adjustments that I had asked for, saying make it clear, clarify what you mean by spending the money. Do you mean spend it all?
Yeah, spend it all.
And I said, but I assume it's according to a plan, and that's what they amended it for, that it would be according to whatever plan. The city will put together their own plan, and they do not have to get the permission from the Tax Advisory Commission. And the county puts together their own plan. And then they have to spend according to the plan, and they have until 2025 to do that, or the tax would go away, and then the county would disperse whatever dollars were left. And the disbursement part, I asked also clarification on that. I don't have the clarification back. There's a lot of other things in this bill that I know that we are interested in, that small part that ties to us, but there's a lot of other major things in that bill, some of which we would really love to see go through, but there's still negotiations. That bill's not dead. That's still being, but they have to hurry, because Saturday, is it Saturday at noon, Saturday at midnight? It's definitely over.
It's done.
But we expect it to happen sooner. We really think it'll be sometime on Friday. So if we don't see some movement pretty quick, it would seem to me that might just go away, or they might take out a portion and move it someplace else. We never know, they're making sausage.
Yes.
So,
And meatballs.
but it does not mean that we have to do something immediately, because as long as we each have a spending plan and we spend it according to the plan, then the tax continues to be collected. And then if people can get their heads together and do something else, fine. And if they can't, then they can't.
Certainly should make us think about our next steps. Any other council comment? Okay, I have a update that I'd like to share on behalf of our own body. And as the fiscal body, the county council has a significant role to play in the community justice reform that is occurring in our community. The members of this council take this role very seriously, and we are aware of the toll that the failures of our current system and facilities are taking on many of our residents. Soon, we will be asked to finance a new jail facility and expanded treatment options for individuals suffering from mental health and substance use crises. We want to make these decisions thoughtfully. We want to be informed, and we have a thorough understanding of the financial implications of these decisions. At the same time, we cannot drag our feet on these issues. Every day, people we know and love are suffering, running out of time and options in a community that can and will do better. Therefore, council will consider as soon as our next meeting establishing a criminal justice fiscal advisory committee. Councilor Iverson has outlined the charge for this body, and the council is currently reviewing the terms for its mission, makeup, and its deliverables. I can say that my intent for this fiscal advisory committee is to be transparent and inclusive in its activities. We will use a participatory approach to identify the investments needed for treatment and diversion programs, a restorative and respectful justice facility, and community reentry supports. We will request fiscal recommendations from this committee for facilities and programs, including capital and operational funding, that support the justice process from prevention through rehabilitation. Finally, I am confident that we will work in tandem with other decision-making bodies over the next several months. We will stand ready to support a better, more compassionate approach to justice. And we will be confident that our reasoning is evidence-based and was constructed collaboratively with the wisdom of input from across our community.
And so what's the date of the meeting that we intend to consider the creation of said commission?
I would like it to be, I would like to have something before us for our next meeting on the 23rd. So everybody has a copy of what Peter has drafted, and comments are to go to Michelle and Molly.
Our next meeting is May 9th, so you're
Our
wanting.
next meeting is not the 23rd, it's
Yeah,
the
that's what I was
9th.
thinking.
That's
That seemed
what
kind of
I
far
wanted
away.
to clarify. So,
Can we do it by May 9th? I think we can.
I think so.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Timely.
So if you could get your comments in the next few days,
yes, please.
Yeah.
and then I'll be in touch, Ms. Turner King.
And that draft will be in the packet, so it'll be available to the public
Yes,
before they come to
absolutely.
the meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
And that packet is available usually by Friday afternoon
Correct.
of the week before the meeting.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, evidently, maybe that came through when I had no internet this morning for some reason. Or-
It should have come in yesterday, and it was sent to all council members from
I received something from you.
from Michelle.
It came from Michelle this morning at 8:50, or yesterday morning at 8:58 a.m.
Well, at any rate,
I can get it.
so I haven't had time to look
Sure.
at that. I must have missed it someplace along the line. But I want to go back to where we started. What was that, 2 years ago, or whatever, a long time ago. And for those of you who were around at that time, you might remember that I thought that the justice side of county government should be having the meetings to bring to the civil side, the commissioners, the council, what they thought that we needed, because they're the experts on that. And then we would be, at the same time, looking at every kind of financing option and so forth, because that's our job. And after all of that was done, then it would become time to gather together. That's not the way it happened, and believe me, I wish it had, because I think I was right. Because the justice side is never, and rightfully so, they're elected to do their thing. And they've never wanted the civil side to tell them what to do, nor would it do any good, because we don't have the authority to.
Right.
The same as they don't have the authority to tell us. So it seems to me, and I don't know what you sent out, so maybe I'm headed a different direction
I
than
just
you
forwarded
are.
it to you. So it's in your inbox right now.
So what?
It's in your inbox right now. I just forwarded it to you.
But I'm just saying, that was my theory then, and I haven't seen a whole lot to change my mind. Now, maybe you folks have got it all figured out, but I hope you don't put together another group that can just argue with one another, because that's, your time is more important than that, and so's their time, everybody's time is.
Well, I think our intent is to put together a body that has representatives from not just county government, but outside county government, in the community, across all the disciplines that have a stake, and try to utilize their expertise to inform the fiscal decisions that we have to be making. So it's not exactly what you're talking about, but it is more along the line of, let's focus on what we can have control over in terms of decision making, and let's make the best decision we can, and let's root it in the reality of our community. There's a lot of information. So yes, there's always the potential that a large group or a diverse group isn't going to have, a unanimous opinion, but I think a well-facilitated group, and one that has a specific directive, if you'll read the document, Peter's kind of outlined a very specific directive that I think will keep people more on task.
And is time sensitive.
And
So
is-
the
and it's time sensitive.
The committee ends in the fall. So
Yes.
we can't drag our feet here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
We're
right,
just-
well, anyway.
We're
probably
trying
shouldn't
to,
get in the weeds.
we're trying to do what we can. Any other council comment? All right, then let us move to item 7 on the agenda, since we removed item 6. And that is an item from emergency management.
Council, I move to approve the Emergency Management Department's request for new account lines and to simultaneously approve additional appropriations in Fund 1000-0361 General Fund Emergency Management in the amount of $15,000 in the services category.
Second.
Great, and do we have, where is he? Oh, there's Justin. Okay. Welcome.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. The Emergency Management Department has established 2 letters of agreements with 2 organizations within the county that can provide services post-disasters. One agreement is for structural engineering by BFW Crane Incorporated. This agreement serves the purpose of establishing a person to contact locally in the event of a structural collapse. The second agreement is with Sunbelt Rentals Incorporated for heavy equipment such as forklifts, or generators that may be needed in response to an incident. These agreements are to serve as a backup plan if our office is unable to obtain a needed resource during an incident in a timely manner. The department is requesting additional appropriation for this matter. We took this information to the county commissioners and they approved of it, tabled it for your appropriation.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Yes.
Yeah, so is this, would this money be spent regardless? Or is this just an appropriation that's there in case either of these two, either the services of the structural engineer or the equipment are needed?
This is going to be serving as a backup plan. So we're going to try to seek equipment, especially equipment through donations if possible, or I know we have a couple assistance programs that's available for like heavy equipment such as forklifts. So we will use those before we use this. So it's kind of like a backup plan.
Okay.
Now the structural engineer, that's one of the major things that we would probably have to spend the money because with the recent building collapse and explosions that happened around the state, such as the Evansville explosion earlier last year, we found out that the state Department of Homeland Security does not have a backup plan. They don't have a structural engineer that's available. So that's kind of like on our own. So the structural engineering would probably be more used for the money.
Okay.
The appropriation. But yeah, it's pretty much a backup plan, if that makes sense.
But if there is no structural collapse, will some or all of that $5,000 appropriation still be spent?
No, if there's no structural collapse, then no, it won't be.
Got it, thank you.
That's the only thing that'll be used for, is if we need to hire a structural engineer for a structural collapse or building collapse or bridge collapse.
That answers my question, thank you.
Okay.
That doesn't sound good.
It's never good to hear when the EMAC folks are here with us.
Everything okay, Mr. Baker?
Yes, I'm good.
Great. Mr. Decker.
And so I have a question for Justin and then a comment. So the question is, this is there should the unthinkable bad occur. This is there for us to have that morning of to respond rather than us try to figure that out morning of. Am I saying that right?
Yes, exactly, yes. These two other agreements were pretty much to get the contact for these companies if we need it, yes.
And my comment is I hope that we never publicly ever have to talk about that line again, really, other than budget and reappropriation. But I want to applaud emergency management for thinking ahead on these things. And I suspect that their lives and the continued professionalization of everything they have to figure out, and that's a lot, so we appreciate them, that they're going to have to keep thinking down these avenues, and county and all of our partners, township, city, fire, police, EMT, you name it, and beyond, not for profit, will have to think along that with it. So I encourage more of this rather than less, because these things do matter, and this council can't wait 48 hours on a called meeting, a morning of a unmentionable. And we hope that that never occurs, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't do things like this. So I appreciate Justin bringing this to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on this item? Okay. In that case, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Now we're at item 8 from our treasurer. Welcome, Ms. McClellan.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I'm going to have to plant a tree after.
Oh.
So I'm here today because I wanted to have a discussion with you all about something that I'm really interested. This is a want. I just want to talk to you about this program that I think would be really beneficial to the county and the treasurer's office, and it would really help professionalize the investing decisions that get made by the treasurer. So I heard this is sponsored by NACO, and I heard about this last year. It's called Cash Vest by 3+1. And what it really does is it is a liquidity management tool. So it will help the treasurer's office see how much there is in cash flow, which is like the waves of the ocean always going up and down. But underneath that, we have the liquidity, which is all of the money that we have in reserve that is not needed on a daily basis. It looks at our data points, and it helps us analyze with data and not opinions and not guessing and not just playing it safe. It really gives us the data that we need to make sure all of our money is being put to use. I heard about this a year ago, and I heard about how it gives time horizons and analyzes your cash flow, and it gives time horizons for how much time money can be in different buckets, like 2 to 5 years for long term, 1 to 2 years for short term, and then CDs like 1 year, and then just general savings. And I thought, wow, that sounds really, really interesting. I can do that myself. And then the reason this is such a great program is because we don't have the time or the expertise to do that. So this is being used by higher ed, a lot of utilities, cities, towns, and counties. We've done a demo. Cheryl was at the demo, and Commissioner Githens and Angie. And I'm really here to start the discussion. I'm very interested. I'm sure you guys have questions. I want everybody, this isn't the formal ask, like, please give me the money that I need to be part of this program, but I want to hear what you guys think. It's going to really professionalize investing for the county. So our deliverables from this are, we do not pay until we make the money. That it would cost $9,900 for our county, which is very reasonable, I think, compared to like investing fees. We don't pay until we make money. We get a quarterly report. It benchmarks all of our bank fees so that we can see where we are in the industry, and we can go and get better bank fees. It benchmarks all of our interest rates. It helps us put our money into different buckets so that the treasurer knows what they should invest. It stress tests our liquidity. So worst case scenario, if something really terrible were to happen, how much money would we need? I'm not the professional presenter either about this program, so I'm kind of doing the best I can, giving you all the information, but my impression was it is a very, very good program, and I'm very interested. So I'll stop jabbering for a minute. Cheryl, did you want to add anything that you learned from the presentation?
I just want to thank you for inviting us to attend this PowerPoint presentation by the company, and I thought it was very informative. It seemed to me a confidential way of managing liquidity, and I was very taken with the number of local government units that participate in this. And we all know that we want to get the best bang for our liquid buck.
Right.
I would like to know something about our own liquidity when you are prepared to tell us about that. And I would be interested in seeing a graphic that shows the cumulative interest earnings relative to the liquidity, and then the payment to CashVest as a company, so that we know what it's costing us to make additional income. Because there's a price for it.
Yes, there is a price for it, yes.
And I think I was particularly interested because I learned that interest rates on CDs have certainly changed greatly over the last month. And
Yes, they have.
it was time to pay attention.
Thank you, Cheryl. That brings to mind a couple other points, is that they're objective. They work for cities and towns. They don't work for banks. They're public officials. They work for public officials. They're objective. Let's see, what else did I write down here? We would communicate directly with we'd have a representative that I would communicate directly with quarterly or even more often. We would get industry benchmarks for what CDs are going for. They would even help us go out and bid for CDs if we wanted them to, or the elected official could do it on their own. It seems really flexible, and it seems like it's going to make an immediate difference in our investment income. Our cash on hand at our lowest level is about 141 million. And if I could have you guys turn to page 7, it looks like this. It says liquidity displayed for decision making. Something that they do is that they help us determine what our total strategic liquidity is. And so they take working capital, how much money, stress test, how much money you would need to run county business every month. And then you have your total strategic liquidity, and that's how much you could be earning interest on. And I have to tell you that it's really not it's not an exact science for the treasurer. I want it to be more professionalized. There is a lot of guesswork because I'm not a professional at this, and I don't want the county to be in a bad position. We give ourselves a really big cushion, and we're still gonna have a really big cushion. I would just like to have the data analysis to back it up and know what we're doing, because we're getting all this ARPA money, we're getting opioid funding, settlement funding. There's really a lot more money flowing into the county at this point in time, and I feel like I'm not doing my due diligence if I don't at least present this to you guys and we have a discussion, like about how much better the county could be doing. So last year, this is embarrassing, last year the county only made $376,000 in interest. I mean, I know we were just coming off COVID. Our best year since I've been treasurer was 2019. We made $1,554,000. And then it went down in 2020 to 500,000, and then it just tanked in 2021 to 173,000, and now we're climbing back up. Last year was 376,000. This year, so far this year, we've already surpassed that. We've already surpassed 376,000. So it's climbing up just naturally, but I really feel like I could be doing, me, and not just me, future elected officials in this county, and you guys would have information from me about it. Commissioners would have information. I feel like there would be so much more data for us to really dig into, and I love the data, and like I said, I wish I could do this myself, but I have found over the past year that I just haven't had time. Who else? Yes, other questions?
First question, which other counties in Indiana are using this?
We would be the first county in Indiana to do this. Yeah, there are no other counties in Indiana doing it. I can find out what other mainly, where their scope of work really is. I know they're in New York.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to find out if there were other counties that have, limitations on their investments that that are kind of similar to what.
And I'm very on top of, yes, those limitations on our investments, and I think other states do have that for their public entities, and I'm very interested in seeing, where we can go despite all that.
And so, I'm actually looking at the report that actually we're going to be discussing here later tonight, and it looks like an assumption of $500,000 was used in the general fund to build the general fund budget.
Yes.
For this year.
For this year, yes.
Sound
yes.
familiar?
That sounds familiar, and I think we will surpass that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the upshot is that number could increase. You think that it could increase more than the $9,000 that it would cost to use this?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. All right.
Okay.
I know that salesmen give you these nice numbers to really get you really excited, but this page with the big purple chart, if you look at client number 2, their overall liquidity and average liquidity overall cash on deposit is 146 million. We're about 141 at our low point, and I know we have to keep, we're not going to give away tax dollars. We're not going to invest. We have to keep track of all our tax dollars too. Okay, sorry. My point is, client number 2, 146 million. The last column, total cumulative interest earnings since using Cash Vest, 9.1 million. Why am I not making, I have a lot of questions about this chart. What year is this from?
Yeah.
But why am I not making 9.1 million? That's my next question. How can I get closer to that? So.
But most recent 12-month period is over $1 million.
And you only pay the 9,000 something fee if you actually, if they demonstrate the savings or the increased revenue. Okay.
Yes. Yes, Marty.
Yes, I listened when you made this presentation or something similar to it. It's been a year ago now, right? When you met with the commissioners. And I remember you talking with commissioners about something similar to this. And the thing I like the best about it is you will not always be the treasurer, right? There's rules. You can't stay there forever. And so for a brand new treasurer, it would be good to feel like they had something there that was helping them keep an eye on it. I would really like to see it be a company from Indiana because our rules are different and not every new treasurer might know what the rules are for Indiana. So I don't know whether you have a list of folks you might use to do something similar here in Indiana.
I'll look into this. Part of their pitch is that they're one of the only groups doing this nationwide, and that's part of the reason why NACO endorses them and is sending them to Indiana to help us get started in this program. And but I hear what you're saying about it being an Indiana company, but also because our Indiana rules are so specific. As the treasurer getting it started, I would definitely make sure that they were 100% on top of all those Indiana rules and making sure that our tax dollars stay liquid so that we can disperse that. We're not like a city or town that collects $90 million and then has to send it back out in a month. There are things that are different about county treasurers. There's things that are different about Indiana. And I'm very aware of that. And I will look I don't have a list of other people that do this, other than like a private, I'm sure, like a private financial solutions group maybe does something like this, or Reedy Financial or somebody like this might do that, or somebody like that might do this, but I can find out.
And you might ask your treasurers association if anybody uses.
I could do that, yes.
Of that sort. I know our county council association is becoming very active, very informed, and I'm very proud of the county councils throughout the state because they are really working to make sure that their voices are heard, and the treasurers, no doubt, have a group that meet the same. So, but I thank you for considering this because. While it may cost something to make the money, if we end up with more, but the question might really be, someone might really question, why are we hanging on to so much money and still charging so much taxes for folks? And I know the ARPA money is a big chunk of money that's coming in until we spend that down. And then we have to look, and we'll be seeing a report here shortly to show us where our cash is setting and how much extra that we have that perhaps we don't have to charge as much in the way of taxes. There's some legislation going on now that's making it clear we don't really have to charge all that we're charging. So
there is a very interesting analysis they can do relating how much you make in interest to how much your taxes could go down. So it could have an effect on our tax rate.
As the interest rates go up, I know we used to watch this very carefully when we were making our projected budget, counting on a huge chunk of money there coming for interest. So, thank you.
Well, you remember when we used to hold the school money and the child welfare money?
Oh, we were trying not to even disperse it, hang on to it.
Yeah, we had $3.1 million in interest income while I was on the council. You were
It was
you
just
were on
like,
the
oh,
council.
let's hang on to it. We don't have to disperse it yet.
Yeah.
And then I think they changed the rules and said, no, you can't just hang on to it. You can pass that out.
It's called the Monroe County Rule.
So, thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing this. I've never been the liaison to your department, so I'm going to ask some questions that maybe other people who have been liaisons to your department would know. But you mentioned a couple times that you'd like to use this tool to professionalize what's happening in the Treasurer's Department. And my question to you is, if you were to do similar things, if you were to develop quarterly reports or stress tests or similar things that's happening here, do you have the FTEs to do that work right now?
Quarterly reports, yes, because that's really just summarizing information that I already have, but stress tests, no, I do not.
Okay. And then, Mike, once, if we go down, use this tool, how public is the data? Will there be a website people can go to, like, what do other communities do? I mean, this is taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would definitely look into see what other communities are doing, and the information is completely public. So I think we could find the best way to present this on our website to the community.
Okay, and then my final question is, do you know how long the contract period is with CashVest?
It's annual.
Okay.
So it's 1 year.
Okay.
So we would definitely, if we did use it, we would definitely evaluate after 1 year, or how I thought the program worked, dollars, how much we made. But it's really important to have a good relationship with an Indiana county for an Indiana county. So I'm very particular about how those representatives treat us when they're coming from if they're coming from out of state.
Wonderful. And, just being able to have that data readily available, not so much, for the public that's important, but I was also thinking to reduce silos within county government so that departments can work freely with the data for different purposes. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, and you might want to take a look at, she does monthly reports, so you might want to take a look at those reports. She has to balance with the auditor with that. Have you looked at those reports?
I have seen those reports, yes. Those are wonderful.
Thank you. They are wonderful.
Other questions, or Councilor Decker?
And I think if I understand you right, if we did this, because we'd be the first county in Indiana, this would make us a very special client for this organization, and they're likely not to give us a hard time about anything. What I like about this is it is being smarter with our dollars.
Yes.
And gosh, it's hard enough to figure that out for our own checkbook and savings accounts as individuals, let alone what you're dealing with. And anyone that's followed government knows there are dollars. Literally, we had an appropriation for EMAC where $15,000 will sit there, hopefully never be used, but those dollars, what can we do with those dollars? What can you do with rainy day funds? The state alone has had between $4 to $6 billion in their surplus. I'd be curious what they do, if they do this at all. Maybe you could give them advice. But also, kind of, I think, alluding to some of what Councilor Hawk would say, I'd also, and you'll know this better than any of us, I know the scuttle on what the state will or will not allow to be done, or what they eventually may not allow to be done, because I remember the time they got mad when cities were collecting plastic trash bags and said, then, well, you can't collect plastic trash bags. So you're our very beloved treasurer. I would want you to have to deal with all that. So maybe sniff that out. But I love anything that maximizes potential, because if we're talking about $300,000, $500,000, that's several jobs. That's several
Absolutely.
highway, truck, you name it. And so I appreciate you thinking like this, because this is what we have to do to manage those dollars right.
AIC is behind this program too. AIC knows about this, and AIC, they sent them to Jessica. They're like, go talk to Jessica.
Awesome.
And a few other counties, but they did come talk to me. They thought I would be interested because AIC thought it sounded like a good program too. So there's a lot of interest in Indiana. Kind of swirling around. Okay.
So I was going to ask about AIC, so I'm very glad to know that you're connected with them. I would like to mention that there are other funds, not managed by the county, but other large funds that are needed for security. For example, the landfill fund in case emergency monies would be needed. And so that money is tied up, but that doesn't mean it could not be possibly also bringing better interest. And so that was something that I worked on when I was on the board, to get some interest being generated by those monies. But from what you've presented, there's a greater possibility.
We have added some good things in Monroe County that I've shared with Solid Waste, like Trust Indiana, the government investment pool, and then we added government bonds. So we have been moving in a little bit more professionalized direction. Just as time has gone on, things have become easier for counties, and I think that this is probably definitely the next step for Monroe County, is to go this route, because we've added some really good things, more than just. CDs are great, and CDs are really great right now, but CDs and money market accounts, I think there's more that we can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's good. So next step for you?
Yeah, next step would be, I think that I will reach out to the commissioners again. We'll talk about funding. So I have a draft agreement. I would ask the commissioners, I think I'll bring this to you, and then I'll also reach out to my liaison and to Cheryl, since she was there, and the rest of you, say I'll probably bring this to council and formally ask for funding. And give you guys a chance to think about it, ask questions. If any really huge concerns pop into your heads, just let me know. And we can talk about it at your next meeting.
That sounds great.
Okay, great.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting and bringing it.
Thank you for your time. I
couldn't make the presentation. All right. We are now at item 9, and we'll have a presentation from Chris Myers with Area 10 on Aging. I believe Chris is on Zoom.
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Do I need to share my screen for the PowerPoint, or is that something that's going to happen because I emailed it? Do you know? If not,
I'm checking. Just a sec.
Okay. She could probably just share her screen.
If you've got it. Oh, okay. All right, we'll have it up here in just a minute.
Okay. Well, while we wait for that, I just wanted to say thank you for having me. Thanks for asking for a rural transit update. I know the agenda had mentioned an update on the electric vehicles, which I hadn't done, but I'm happy to answer any questions on that as well. But I thought that Councilor Wiltz had asked for just a general update for rural transit, and so that's what I did. But certainly feel free to interrupt, ask questions, and we'll go from there. But you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so rural transit is a public transportation service, as you're familiar with, but what a lot of people may not remember is that we cover 4 counties. So we do 3 different types of services in those 4 counties, one of which, and the majority of which, is in Monroe County, but Monroe, Owen, Lawrence, and Putnam counties are also served through the 5311 program grant funds that the county receives on our behalf. We also have an express route, or what's called point deviation route, that's in Putnam County and Greencastle. So that's kind of like what you have in Bloomington Transit or, city areas where it's kind of a fixed route idea, but we actually deviate up to 3/4 of a mile off of that route. And we do that in Greencastle in a very populated area because we can. It's not an urban area. They don't have the equivalent of Bloomington Transit there. And then we also do a lot of non-emergency medical transportation. And I'll talk about the first and third next. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So demand response is a lot of what we do, right? So we are, you call, you make an appointment, you have someplace you need to go, we pick you up at your door and we take you to your destination. That's not like the fixed route in Bloomington. And we do that Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Currently, we are only operating 3 routes in Monroe County. These are routes where they just pay $3 each way, and it's available for anybody. So we have people who use that for work, we have people who use it for school, we have people who use it for medical things, shopping, and all kinds of other activities. It's not just because we're Area 10 Agency on Aging, it is not for just the seniors and the physically disabled individuals. Next slide, please. And the non-emergency medical transportation is an important piece of what we do, though. That is for individuals who do have medical appointment needs and are on Medicaid. We usually have 1 driver and 1 minivan that's available in Monroe County to make those trips when needed. That can fit typically 3 per day, and if it's long distance, 1. Obviously, if we're going to Indianapolis, we can't typically go there, come back, and do that a couple times when they have a medical appointment because of the waiting that's involved to make sure that's transferred. The Medicaid revenue is an important piece for our local match, which you'll see later when I kind of do a brief overview of our budget situation. And you may be familiar, you may have heard about some of the concerns that have happened when the state of Indiana several years ago went to a state broker for transportation. It was with Southeast Trans, which is now called Verida. But that is who we work with to meet those ongoing needs, which is still very important in the county. Next slide, please. So current fleet utilization, just again to give you an idea, and just current utilization in general, for the whole system, for the 4 counties, we have 14 vehicles in use. We have 27 vehicles total when they all run, when they're all operational. We have several that are not operational right now, and we have the 5 that we've most recently been able to purchase thanks to the ARPA funds from Monroe County that will be used for Monroe County transportation, which is wonderful. In Monroe County specifically, right now we're operating with 4 vehicles. We have the potential to have 6 more dedicated to those routes as we can increase routes and utilization of transit as we get further into more normalization and people going out and using transportation and things that had kind of taken a big dive during the pandemic. And just as a kind of parallel to the vehicles, you need vehicles and you need drivers, right? So we also have system-wide 19 drivers right now. So just like we are kind of down in trips, we're down in drivers. That consists of 8 full-time drivers and 11 part-time drivers right now. And in Monroe County, that's 7, 4 full-time and 3 part-time. I'll talk a little bit later about how that's very significantly different than what we had pre-COVID. We also borrow from Owen County, a substitute driver, or kind of cross between the 2 counties because we get a lot of transportation between those 2 counties for drivers. Next slide, please. So what are we seeing in Monroe County specifically 2022? So our grant and our program year run January through December. So this is giving you not a fiscal year, but an actual fiscal program year, which is January through December of 2022. Monroe County trips was 9,628. That's one-way trips. That is half of what it was in 2019. We took a huge, like all other public transportation did, took a huge dive when COVID came, and we've been climbing back out. So we have been showing, and just like everyone else, a great increase month over month, which is promising and wonderful. We're very happy to be there, but we are definitely down on transportation from 2019 to 2022. But to give you an idea, rural transit puts a lot of miles on the bus, right? We drive a lot of those county roads, and it shows in our miles. So revenue miles is the actual, counter for when we go pick up and then when we take to. So any transportation in between or service miles or anything like that doesn't get counted in this. That's just the revenue miles for providing those particular trips. So an average trip really is over 12 miles. And to give you an idea of demand, I wanted to put this in there too. For Monroe County alone, we have, trips, requests that come in that we can't meet right now. Part of that was because of vehicles, and part of that's because of drivers. So we know that there are people who need it and that we can build back up. But we have quite a few that are medical trips that are needed that we can't meet right now. And that's 44 one-way trips on average, looking at the past 6 months. And then other non-medical requests are about 38 per month that are not being met through current needs. Next slide, please. So the next slide is a just basic table to kind of give you an idea of how the funding works. For those of you that might not be familiar, the county receives through NDOT a pass-through grant from the FTA. It's called Program 5311. That is the rural transportation funding. So urbanized areas get 5307 funding, and they get that directly through FTA usually. Ours is, it's a 50% match, so you have 50% of your net expenses that are covered by that program funding. The state does allocate what's called public mass transit funds. It, formula-wise is supposed to be like 25%. In my time at Area 10, I've been there 9 years, has not been 25%. It's more like 20% that comes through to help towards that local match. And then the rest has to be done through through the local avenue of revenues, and that kind of comes in various different categories, one of which is supposed to be county government allocations for local match support, and then other state and non-federal local funds that can be used, and then in-kind. Those are the big categories. So for rural transit, the way we have tried to piece together local support for that has been for asking for government support from the 4 counties, Medicaid revenue, like I talked about for that NEMT coverage, contract services. So, we really would be up a creek if we didn't have our Stone Belt and our Lark and our Sweet Owen Industries, or those particular IDD populations where we're helping them with transportation needs and having contract services that help us with that revenue. AAA, that's Area Agencies on Aging. So we serve Putnam County, which is not Area 10's area. It's a different area, and we get some Title III Older American Act funds that we can help allocate towards meeting transportation needs of seniors. So we, between the 2 organizations, contribute about $40,000 towards that a year. And then bus ads, which, is pretty tiny. It's actually gotten a lot less in the years. And we have to pay, of course, unrelated business income tax on any of that. So that's the gross amount that hits the budget. Is there a question?
No.
Okay, that's okay. The next couple slides take this kind of general overview and put it into an example of what's estimated for 2024. We had to just now go through our estimation for our grant renewal for 2024. So this kind of gives you a better picture of actual expenses and revenue for each of those categories. So if you go to the next slide, please, that will show you the expenses. I have 2 columns here for expenses, and I usually do this for the commissioners because I like to show this is what we really think we're going to spend, and this is what we could spend if we had, more local match actually to pull and and match up against the FTA allocation. So we, every year, leave funds on the table for FTA because we do not have the local match to pull that down. And Area 10 is a local nonprofit, and just like any other nonprofit, we have to watch every penny that we have. And we're not going to front the expenses that we can't get reimbursed for other means to operate public transportation. So it's important to be transparent about that. So this is, the top half of the graph here on this page is the estimated expenses. We're looking at 2024 being about 1.5 million that we would spend as we are right now operating at the end of 2022 and into 2023 with reasonable increases, about 10% in many of the areas. And then if you go to the next slide, it'll show the revenue area. We have to, off the top, we have to remove the fares that we collect. So anything we collect in fares doesn't actually go towards the formula for how much FTA will give us towards those net expenses. So that's just kind of part of that calculation. And then our, the categories, this is literally out of the grant. So the general fund appropriation is the category, other unrestricted federal and state, and then in-kind, like I explained before. I highlighted the other unrestricted federal and state because that's the bucket, right? That's the one that if we don't have the funds, that's where we plug it as unknown, and hope that we can build that up to try and get sufficient support to operate. We know an estimation of the state PMTF funds. It's not expected to increase for the 2024. Sometimes it increases by a pittance and sometimes it doesn't. So that's what we're expected to put in for the budget. And then the federal funds that's the amount that we are allocated for our 4-county service area is that third column over, 893,000. If we use the full allocation, that would be what we pull down from the feds for transit. The next slide. So this kind of breaks out and helps break out that local match in a little bit more detail, just to kind of give you an idea of what we do to piece together and how that currently comes through the pipeline. In kind, we're able to partner with a few different of the counties and get free space, free phone, free internet, which is really valuable. It would otherwise hit the expense and did otherwise hit the expense. I was able to convert Owen and Putnam County in the last few years to donated space, which is helpful. And then general fund, those are the various entities. The town of Spencer is really the only government fund in Owen County that's contributing. If you haven't read the paper or other news sources, Owen County government is not necessarily operating in the best efficient way that can contribute towards public transportation right now, unfortunately. And then we have the other broken out in a little bit more detail. So you see what Putnam County can provide in their Older Americans Act, and then Area 10 through Monroe and Owen County, what we estimate for Medicaid, and then the other category, that highlighted one, which is the unknown. So what I do know and what I don't know for contract or possible contract revenue for that is noted in those boxes. So we know that we've got about 103,000 in real revenue that we can count on for contract services. And then we have 81,000 currently and 82,000 currently that we would not know or be able to have right now for 2024 in order to support, essentially operations as is for 2024. And then of course, if we were to use the full amount and utilize it for transportation, we would need another 243,000. So that kind of gives you an overview of what we're dealing with operationally. If you go to the next slide, I just want to kind of briefly overview where we are right now for staffing challenges. We are still trying to staff back up with drivers. Monroe County, like I said, is at 4 full-time and 3 part-time. Where we were in 2019 when we were doing twice as many routes was 10 and 3. We're looking at a shortfall of about 200 weekly hours of transportation are 5 routes. We used to regularly run 8 routes in Monroe County, demand response. So that's kind of the lost potential right now that we'd like to get back to. And, the other concern is, and, I think it was sometime early last year when we were offered the opportunity to have a bump in our FTA match to bring pay up for drivers, which is part of the problem. Of course, everybody has had that problem with staffing. I sent emails out to every county, tried to reach every county to see if there was any kind of positive feedback in trying to pursue that in order to bring our drivers up in higher pay, and I got no response from any of the elected officials except for the town of Spencer. So I didn't pursue an increase in FTA funds, even, I just can't make that kind of promise for something that I don't think I can necessarily get in deliverables from county government. So that it's a challenge. It's public transportation is absolutely needed. I know it's absolutely supported by everyone as a public service, but where the rubber meets the road, quite literally, we need to have the funding in order to do that right. And that's an ongoing challenge for us. So I am happy to take any questions that you have. And if I don't know the answer, I'll get it for you.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of really good information. And there are hands raised. So, Councilor McKim.
Thank you, Chris. This is great. I do have a couple of questions. First of all, in your RT door-to-door slide, you refer to 3 routes in Monroe County. I want to make sure I understand what routes means in the context of door-to-door. Does that just mean you have 3 drivers, 3 buses going at once?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right. And then second question, in a door-to-door trip, can either end be inside the city of Bloomington, or do both have to be outside of the city of Bloomington?
Currently, and the way it's always historically been, one of those legs has to be outside of the city of Bloomington. So city to county, county to city is how we have been doing things.
Okay, but somebody who lives, for example, in the city of Bloomington could use rural transit to travel to something outside of the city. A medical
Absolutely.
appointment,
Yep.
or work at Cook or something like that. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
And then also just on the local match, the local funding. So you've got 66,000 listed for the 2024 budget. I'm looking at actually the report that we're about to consider now, and it actually, I believe that we have 80,000 appropriated for 2023, but I'm wondering if some of that is for something else in rural transit that doesn't count toward the match, or...
I'm not aware of anything to support operations outside of the 66,000. I would be happy to have 80,000 instead of 66,000, but I'm not aware of any.
Okay, and I mean, I assume there's an MOU with the commissioners that actually allocates that money, but there is 80,000 in the budget right now for rural transit. And then finally, what would our local match have to be to max out the FTA reimbursement? What should we be to not leave any FTA money on the table?
243,000 more than what we have right now.
243 more than you have now?
Wait, that would be 243,000 more in local match?
That's right.
And that would get us how much in additional FTA?
300, I think we're leaving 200 and, hang on just a second, I've got that. 330,000.
Okay, thank you.
Is left on the table. Yep.
Thanks.
Other questions? Councilor Deckard?
I want to make sure I'm understanding based on what Councilor McKim's question was and your answer. If we were to maximize that local match between the dollars we would be allocating and the FTA dollars, we're talking about $500,000, $600,000 in additional dollars for you, period. Is that right?
So it's 330,000 total in the estimated budget additional if we had the full FTA. if we had 243,000 more in local match, we would pull down all of the FTA that we aren't right now, right? And that's 161 on slide 9 is 161,000 of unused FTA.
Gotcha.
Remember, yeah, so the first column, we already know that we have 81,000 we don't have right now in order to pull down the 732,000 and 5311 funds. I know it's complicated. If we had the slide back up, I know that's a pain in the butt, but you also have that too. So if you look at slide 9, it'll have that laid out for you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know it's complicated.
No, I appreciate you bringing up the money left on the table.
Yeah.
That's kind of been a theme we've had this evening.
Thank you to the tech person. Visual is so good.
Who, did you have your hand raised originally? I'm sorry.
I did, but I don't know how you want to, yeah, I did my hand, yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, thank
I've
you.
lost track of.
Executive Director Myers, thank you for being here tonight. Really appreciate the presentation. The first question that I had is about, let's see, what is it? About 13 months ago, we were able to get you some electric vans. How are those performing?
So you did allocate for electric vans, and it was at the end of this year, end of 2022, and we were able to procure those and get those in March. I think I sent everyone a photo.
You did, yeah.
Great, congratulations. We're outfitting that. We're actually waiting for the safety lift guards to be installed, so that goes in front of not the ramps, but the lifts that go down, which are supposed to be done Monday and Tuesday. But we have had one of the 5 already out on the road.
That's great.
Fully outfitted, waiting for the lift guard. So we have them, they're all there. All of the chargers are there, everything works. It's quite wonderful.
Well, we love to hear that everything works. That's good. My next question is a little different. I'm interested in the Medicaid, individuals using Medicaid for the reimbursable trips. Have you seen the percentage of those rides increase or stay the same, or how have you seen those folks using rural transit since the pandemic, or since before the pandemic, excuse me?
So those took a huge dive, just like everything else in March of 2020, but they have continually gone up and stayed parallel with the regular demand. I mean, the amount that we're denying on medical trips because we don't have a bus or a driver right now is about on par with where we were before COVID.
That's wild. And
yeah.
And if I heard you correctly, the clog in the system is not more vehicles, although that would be helpful, but it's the drivers. Is that correct?
That's correct. Drivers. We need drivers.
All right. Let's see what
it's
we can
hard
do.
to compete with, $15, $16 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Well, and
the people we get love their jobs. We are happy for that. And we get an older demographic a lot of times, but people, our drivers are wonderful. They really are like caregivers.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Crossley.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I had a couple of questions. Going back to slide 3, where it says to call, reserve, pick up, drop off at least 3 days in advance. I'm just curious, do you have many folks that can't give you that much in advance? And if so, are you able to help them, or what happens next after that?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And that has been kind of our standby. What we have always said is 3 days in advance. I can tell you that we take same day regularly and fit them in. And if we can't, we actually, most of the time, the reason that we're on the phone all the time is helping them work out alternatives. So if it can't work today and you need it today, can you get your appointment, or can you get this? Can we work towards tomorrow or the next day? But that also is captured under those trip denials, the all other per month. So we do have about 38 people or 38 one-way trips requests per month that are non-medical in nature that we simply can't fit.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question kind of goes back to slide 11, where we are talking about the shortage of drivers. Of course, here in MCCSC, we know as a parent the struggles of public transportation and how that definitely has major impact and influences on community needs. But I guess my question to you would be, are you getting applicants, like qualified applicants, and are they just not taking it because of pay? Or I'm just curious to know, like, what are you getting in terms of applicants for the positions to fill the drivers?
Yeah, I will say that happily we've at least received some applicants and qualified applicants since January. And then some people will drop, the problem is we've also had people who've had to leave, right? So we gain one and then we lose one. I think we just had one go back to part-time status because of medical situation. Things that are outside of our control for sure. But in general, we hadn't been getting the applications at all prior to January. And now it's pretty slow. So, it might trickle in every once in a while, but we're not seeing, we've had a job posting and a yard sign out for as long as I remember. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Hawk?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't know it was on there. Let's say if someone worked an 8-to-5 job and then they would have to get to wherever their pickup place would be, or maybe you're saying they would come directly to their house and pick them up. If they tell you so much in advance and say, and this is what I want for the next 6 months, whatever, can they rely on being able to get to work at 8? So that they don't get fired for showing up late. And if that would be so, look how reasonable that would be. If we're talking $6 a day, 5 days a week, that's $30, and you don't even have to buy the gas. You don't have to pay for the car or the car insurance or anything. Very reasonable. Let's say 4 weeks out. We know there's more than 4 weeks a month sometimes, but that is $120 a month. And how many are spending far more than that on either leasing a car or trying to repair an old car that costs them a fortune to keep taking care of, and then just stopping at the filling station and knowing they went the grocery money. This would be a way to really be able to budget for those folks who need to budget and be able to get to work. So how reliable is it because they don't dare show up late for work?
Yeah, we have historically been a reliable transportation source for people who are using it to get to work. So yes, of course, if somebody calls and they want to use it for their work transportation just like they would their school, they can make that reservation and it be kind of a standing reservation. But it has to be, like I'm saying, we are short on drivers right now, so we would not commit to that unless we knew we had a slot at that time. And then once we had the slot, then of course that would be, as long as they needed it and as long as we could go moving forward, it would be a reliable. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I just want to share with you, if you can see this, I'm still very proud of this. It's a big thank you from the Area 10 Agency on Aging. I was on the board for a long time, and it's dear to my heart. And so when I see a bus go by and we don't have it filled, and I know that there's people that need that transportation, I just somehow or the other, we need to get the message out, and we need to help rural transit get that message out. You'd be surprised how many people follow along on Nextdoor or Facebook or some kind of media like that and reach our friends and our neighbors who could really use the service, and they just either don't know about it or they think it's really for old folks like me, and really it's for people of any age. So.
Preaching to the choir, I completely agree about that. I definitely want to get some more drivers before we get our bullhorns out too loudly.
Right.
How much do you think it's going to take for offering per hour to be able to get those driver positions filled?
I think if we could get it to $15 an hour at least, we'd be in better shape, but it really probably ought to be 16.
Wait, you're saying you're not even at 15 yet? Is that what you're saying?
No, said they're at 14.
Yep.
Well,
and I
of
was just
course.
able to bring that up late last year to
Yeah.
14. Yep.
That might be something that we need to take a hard look at, to just maybe subsidize just for 1 year, trying to get drivers accustomed to being there. It's real easy for them to get really committed to doing it because they really, those drivers they really get connected to the passengers. It's a real emotional connection there. So that might be something we could look at. I mean, with the fiscal body, we can look at it. Doesn't mean we can have it.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments for Ms. Myers? Nope. Well, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I really appreciate all the information, and you've given us a lot to think about as we approach another budget season.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being interested and your support now and all the years in the past as well. It's really an important service. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, I agree that it's important. Thank you. All right, have a good night.
You too.
And now we're on to the next agenda item. And welcome, Mr. Garitas.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and good evening. And I'll try and take the next hour.
I'm here for the night.
That was just to make sure you were awake.
I'm not settled in.
To go over the second part of the document, which we had talked about in September of last year, and this is kind of a fulfilling the bringing the document up to date for actuals of 2022. I'm telling you that to start out, you've got one of the most important documents as you proceed forward on your computers here, the Sustainability and Revenue and Spending Plan, for as you proceed with any type of financing or any type of cash management or anything like that, should really pay attention because there's a lot going on here. In other words, it even tells you on the very back page, we're going to come to page 1, the summary of the general fund, or maybe we'll go to the recommendations, sorry. But in the very back page, it shows you it costs you about $122,000 a day just in the general fund to run county government. That's just in one fund. And so there's statistics like that. And then, as you know, we've scheduled out most of the major funds. So number one document that the rating agency asks for is your long-term budget plan. Number one document DLGF believes you should be looking at is budgeting your funds more than 1 year. I'm serving on, I just got off a phone call this afternoon, a couple hours, about the new gateway version that will be coming next year, not this year, good news. And it's going to have an emphasis in the new document about cash reserve. It's going to be red if it's going down. It's going to be green if it's going up, because the most misunderstood thing is people are saying the DLGF approved my budget, so I should be okay. Well, they will approve it until your balance gets to zero, your reserve or your cash balance. And so that's one of the most misunderstood. They won't tell you to cut the budget until your reserve goes down to zero. Well, you don't want to be there because you won't have the credit rating you have today, that's for sure. So what I wanted to do is say, it's a very valuable document, lots of information. A lot of times people say 200 pages. Couldn't you do it a little more simpler? And I think the whole point is the detail is in there. Now, where I believe you're heading, and a very, very significant point, is 2023 and the realignment that you did in your salaries is going to be really telling. Okay, where we end up, I'm going to really look forward to the 630 balances. Keeping in mind, we always do an 18-month budget process, and the first 6 months is so valuable to what's going to happen the second 6 months. Because you put in certain things into the budget in 2023 for boosting up salaries, for maybe retention of employees, some new employees, and I'm going to guarantee you that you will not probably spend all that, but I will also guarantee you it will be significantly different than 22 on the actual spend. And so that's going to be really carrying over, and you've already seen it if you looked at the general fund. It's going to be really telling to where those cash balances head in 24, 25, and 26. We did in the general recommendations section note that's really the full implementation of the wage salary study is going to be very, very important. And I'm on some of the notes at the very beginning. Kim, I'm sorry, that wasn't on page 1. So that was so you're fine. We also put in some of the general observations about some of the cash balances, and then some recommendations too, and general points. And I think some of these I went over with you back in September. So if we go to the general fund, which is page 1 on the PDF, you'll see, and actually it folds up to page 22, you'll see the trend on the cash reserves as we implement the full 2023 budget. You notice what we do down there is we put two different line items on ending balance. One of them is with the assumption that you spend 100% of your budget, and one of them is if you spend 99. Where did we get 99? We really look at the historical. We could have easily made that probably 95, but one more page. One more page. Yep. It's going to be the second page of the general fund. Should be page 2. One more. Next one. That's the beginning part, and then I was focusing on those line items right there. Yes, so the one line with the assumed spend down and then the ending balance. Keep in mind then what we also do is show you what we believe is the minimum fund balance. This is based upon standard operating procedures across the country of having a minimum reserve balance of approximately 20%. We like it when it's a lot stronger than that, and we believe it should be stronger than that because that would maintain your credit rating and also would be in conformance with some of your peer group. Keep in mind, that's what Standard & Poor's and Moody's does, is they take your peer group, not from the state of Indiana, but from the entire country. And lots of, they'll use college towns, they'll use different types of ones. I think we were, Brevard County in Denver, in Colorado was one of them, with that we were measured up to, that they shared with us. And so, it's not just how you're doing in Indiana, it's how you compare it across the country. So the implementation and how that spend occurs for the first 6 months of 2023 is really going to be telling. And you can see that we have projected at this point in time, a trending down of the cash balance, and your COLAs and what you do for 24 and 23. It's the number one subject that county councils are asking me right now. Matter of fact, I tell everybody in Hancock County, we start the budget for 2024 in January. You know, we're already talking where the income taxes go, second biggest source of revenue. Where on Saturday night at 11:59, if it takes that long, where the boys and girls, I call them boys and girls downtown, where they come out at 11:59 on Saturday night is going to be really, really telling. And that's going to change this story. And as you know, we have an evergreen document that we can kind of, if we get the best and latest and greatest information, we can put it in here. Getting DL Jeff to get the income taxes out quicker, the projections for 2024 is very important for you, and we've spoken. They're working and working and working. That GIS system just won't line up the real-time income taxes for us anytime soon. So hopefully, though, they'll be getting that out more in August, and the supplemental distribution should be coming out any week now. So that will play into how our revenues truly come in. And I think our revenues that are in here for 2023 are conservative, there's no doubt about it. Because guess what? No one thought about in September, we didn't update that the interest income should go up significantly. But you also know, Marty and Jeff's lived through it, and you know, interest income was really low too at different points in time. So that could change. But we believe that that will help you. But the income taxes and the effect of Bloomington changing the mixture has really been worked through here in very, very specific detail. And that's important because you know, that changes your edit dollars, that changes your PSAP dollars, and you'll see those notes as you go through here. Now, I could go through several of these funds, but I do want to, I know you've been here almost 2 hours, getting about 15 minutes, so I want to address some of the questions that you may have. And so I like to say fire at will, because I know the document, I helped put it together, and I do review it in detail, so I know it well. So how can I help?
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience waiting.
Yeah, thank you. And I really wanted to come in person. I know that you know, the Zoom thing works sometimes well, but not always.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Clearly, Jeff has no questions, so go ahead.
Why are you pulling down his hand?
No, these should be pretty simple. So just to clarify, though, when you use the euphemism changing the mixture, you're referring to annexation.
Well, not only that, but they also control the rate. And you know, right now, the number one thing that everybody is looking at is reproportioning, and I'm going to be speaking at 2 of the AIC budget seminars and that they'll be having in May. And one of the things we always caution everybody is to kind of look at where your income taxes are coming in, and if they're coming in at surplus in certain areas, realign them. Okay, so that maybe you're not increasing. So I don't want you to confuse that with increasing the tax rate, but realigning the components. And Jeff, that's what we saw, and we've noted that on a couple of these funds.
PSAP led, I know.
Yeah, and that's pretty important. So it actually can happen, and we note the annexation, but it can actually happen with the realignment too. So you've got 2 things to be familiar with.
So then also you mentioned the fund balances and the recommendations and the impact of the fund balances on our credit rating. Is the rainy day fund kind of taken into account in that calculation?
Well, here's what we're recommending in the recommendations is number one, you ought to set up and number one thing they do is ask for,
next question.
What is your formal policy on fund balances? And so and I've done this for a while, okay? And we've done minimum fund balance resolutions, and that's the best way to do it. And we state in that resolution, sometimes we call it target minimum, okay? And so the wording is very, very important. But what everybody, and that would probably help your liquidity person, your treasurer, determine what you want to see as a county council that is acceptable as far as a minimum fund balance and or a target to get to. And why I say that is we believe in, some counties believe that a rainy day target should be $10 million, and they're at 8. And so they articulate it as a target fund balance because they're striving to get there each and every year, but they want to set a peg of 10. Then that also helps you articulate to the community, you're not really hoarding dollars or excessively holding dollars, kind of like what I heard Councilmember Hawk mention, and that kind of addresses that too. So it's a great resolution, and one of them we're recommending you put together.
So can you provide a model resolution that's been
Absolutely.
used in, because that, I think that would be really helpful.
Here's what we usually do is we would, number one, we don't cover the dog catcher fund, and you don't have that. But we cover the majority of the funds. We'll take what I call a first strike at it and put it in there based upon these numbers. And then you would want to obviously review that and memorialize that if you see fit in a final resolution.
Does everybody agree that that's the right way to proceed?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And remember, I know you're not a business, but we want to try and run government as efficient and effectively as a business we can.
Right. I just don't want us to have to write these from scratch when.
Sure.
you have
Yeah, there's no need.
model.
And Jeff, I can get it to Jeff, and Jeff can do his magic on it.
The Jeff
You met
magic.
the Jeff Cockrell.
Yes.
And then final question before I yield. This is to go to the spend down percentage, the 99. I'm still struggling with the 99% in the general fund, just because, in 2022, and Bree was just sending us, sent us out a report of the reversions. We had about $2 million in unspent appropriations.
I put that in here, yeah.
So I'm just wondering if that 99% is really accurate. We usually don't spend down that high a percentage of our appropriations in the general.
But what we saw is you did bump up the salaries.
Oh.
That was a pretty big part of it. Then we also brought on new employees. Now, we didn't get the new count of how many actual of those positions you filled, but that's going to be forever telling. So, Jeff, you're right. I went out on the proverbial limb with the assumptions that, number one, those pay increases went through, those new hires came through, and you may have had to give some of the retaining bonuses that you mentioned and you set up in your budget also. So when we see a large percentage of the budget being driven by payroll, and we know the needs of all the county employees are underpaid, there's no doubt about it. And I can go to any county in the state of Indiana and show you that, except Bartholomew. They keep using that as the highest paid sheriff. So, and I keep getting, everybody keeps trying to go to that pay scale, and we can't. That's why I consciously did that, but it's easy to show at a 95 level.
Well, I'm good with being conservative. I just want to make sure I was
Yeah.
interpreting that.
That's why
based on
we
what I
did
was
it.
seeing in reversions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 630 is important. Might want to align it if we show that you only spent 45% or 40% of your entire budget in the first half. But really, the key is going to be how many of those new employees did you bring on?
And so we'll get a new version in early July then with
Absolutely.
the 630.
Yeah, kind of an
balances.
update.
Thank you.
Yeah. We like to say there's three key points that we update. We update, right after we close the year, like now. We update then when any significant information comes due, especially the 630, and then that's kind of the budget process. And then, once you finally adopt a budget. And it's pretty easy to update that. The most major thing is working in the 24 budget. Once you get it, it takes a little time to do that. Build it in.
And I do have another question, but I'm going to let somebody else. No. Well, this is
Witness
based on
is
one of the
prepared for
recommendations.
cross-examination, so.
Well, this is a recommendation that you made. Well, recommendation number 2, review future cumulative bridge expenses and reduce property tax levy if possible and move to general fund. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about that one.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so really important point is max levy, okay? Your maximum levy takes into account your general fund, your health fund, and I didn't bring your 1782 or I could have gone through all of them.
Election, aviation, reassessment. Cumulative bridge.
And if you noticed on aviation, if you looked in here, we migrated about $200,000 of that levy back to and proportionate to the other funds. Now, if you look at aviation, there's a little bit of, you might want to be careful with that.
It goes negative in 2026.
Yes, because it might have to come back. And so migrating your levy between those controlled funds, of which bridge is a controlled fund, Cume Bridge, not Major Bridge. Major Bridge outside, remember, we brought that and adopted that many, many years ago. And so strategically making sure, and I know Lisa does a very good job because we spent with, I was just down here last month with the Redevelopment Commission going through all of our capital improvements, but making sure that that's not bringing in too much for the overall 10-year bridge plan. Okay? And so that's really important. And having that communication and having it match up there, does appear to be strong. It doesn't appear to be too strong. That would not be my call. That would be really Lisa's call and the council's call with some discussion. Okay? And that's what we meant by that, because it may get important to your aviation fund to migrate some back. It looks like it could start getting important to the general fund as time goes on.
Discussing that particular fund, I know there was legislation, I believe it went through, having to do with allowing us to do more in-house work rather than having to contract it out. There was we've always been able to do a certain amount, and that's it. And we were trying to cover that out of that Cume Bridge fund, trying to do as much of the work as we could ourselves with, and we had staff in there, some of our drivers and so forth. So, but I've always looked at it as it is a part, you may as well just say, put that together with the general fund, and then could either of those funds put together give money, any additional money over to the other funds and reduce the general fund by that much, if we had to. But we certainly don't want to be in a situation where some counties have just really let their bridges fall apart and the roads fall apart.
Exactly.
And as much as I hate new taxes, I was out there making sure that the major bridge fund happened. Because if we didn't have that major bridge fund, which is not the same thing as this Cume Bridge, because that's setting in that frozen levy, but the major bridge is a rate controlled, and it's not in a part of the frozen levy, although it is in the 1%, 2% cap, 3% cap, but it's not a part of our frozen levy. So, I work with the highway, and I'm always trying to make sure that we leave enough money there because we do an excellent job with our roads and our bridges. I mean, beyond what many, many counties can do. But one of the last
So again, if I may.
yes.
Again, I'm just suggesting that you sit down with your 10-year bridge plan and you right-size it.
Right, right. And I absolutely appreciate you saying that. I remember at one of your last seminars, one of your statements you made was that what everybody was going to have to look for and watch out for was the salaries for the jailers and the salaries for our road drivers. And I've said that over and over since I heard you say that. I keep reminding everybody, we have to look at those because those are the ones that, and we have really worked at that. I mean, we are working at that, though I'm not sure we're where we need to be with the drivers. But it's so important for anybody who's going to have the time and ability to try to make sure you're teaching budget 101
County
for
Council.
AIC.
Yeah.
And that's just in another week or so, right?
I'm doing the May 18th and 17th and 18th.
Right. And
Up
so
in the two.
just as soon as you think you know everything, you go and listen to him and you'll find out that you don't. There's always
Well,
something
thank you.
new to learn.
Thank you. And one example, Marty, on the jailers, and this is a real live example, one county didn't increase theirs. So the only thing they were getting is applicants that were 18 years old.
Right.
Put 18-year-old in your jail, see what happens.
We
did.
know that. We know that.
Okay.
Are you trying to rub that in our noses?
So all I'm saying is, let's be careful. There's judgment bonds in Lake County for a reason.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that you brought that to our attention, and I just have repeated what you've told us at that training session over and over again. And so your words have been heard right here in this
Well, thank
room many times.
Thank you.
Council Iverson. Oh, and the other thing I saw, I can't remember what page it was on because I studied this when I first got it, and that's been a while. Where you saw a revenue going down and you tagged on there that it was assuming that annexation would go through. So was that in the public safety lit fund? Is that which fund?
Yeah, I think it was several of them.
Well, it certainly would be the food and beverage for sure. If that,
Yeah.
Boy, and you brought back the 3 meetings that I spent, 5 hours here supporting that food and beverage tax. When you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, it was right here. And
then what did I say? Remember when you were right here and I said, I think we ought to put a sunset on it because this could go on and why they don't do something. It's like, oh, well, we don't need that.
Right, but it's an awesome possibility
You're right.
coming.
I think, however, if we had put something on there to let people know that they better get busy and get it done instead of dragging it on so long.
So
this county
we
would do
talked to
well.
Jeff, and it's my understanding the annexations are still in court to a certain degree. So it would be impacting most likely all of the funds that receive income taxes. So that's why we put the note on several of the funds.
And you've got that in your revenue assumptions. You see the big drop in 2025.
Yes.
Right, that's what I
Yep.
was.
Yep, because that's what we knew as of so far as the time of the report. So stay tuned.
Because we're going to see that huge jump when we start getting that extra income tax, and then we're going to see
It go down.
a drop when
Right.
they get the population count and so
Yeah,
forth.
there's a lot of ups and downs on this one
Right.
coming. So that's why it's critical to look beyond 1 year,
Yeah.
please.
If you learn nothing else. Counselor Iverson.
Well, thanks again for coming back.
Sure.
Really appreciate you being here. And, I really appreciate the recommendations that you give in terms of lit and the pressures that everyone's feeling on, labor costs. But one of the things that I think where we're at right now is we're also looking at increased capital costs. As we have a new jail that we need to be building, and how are you? I don't imagine that those are built into your assumptions in this report right now, but I imagine that those will be built into assumptions in the future in terms of if we're going to be, building a jail versus if we're going to be building treatment and increase labor costs on those, or increase, in different areas like that. And I kind of want to hear your thoughts on what we're looking toward.
So you're right. We have not gone too far out on that limb at this point in time, but I can tell you in the last several months, I've built the biggest jails, which is both Hancock County and Hendricks County. And there's the ways of funding them, especially with the dedicated jail tax, was awesome. We actually wrote that legislation for Hancock County. Bob Cherry carried it, and it's called the Correctional Facility Tax. Now here we've been talking about utilizing audit and things like that, but bringing on the impact of, they say the new design will save, and I keep hearing the new design's not saving employee cost and things like that. So it's very, very important. I can also tell you, first of all, in Hancock County, we've started a state-of-the-art program for rehabilitation and bringing people through the justice. We have a justice navigator system now. And I just got off the phone this morning with Hamilton or Hancock County Regional. They're actually going up to Allen County to talk about, they want to hear about what they're doing, what we're doing in Hancock County. Might be something, we've started this program with ARPA funds. I just wrote up the internal controls for it. It's a $5 million program that we're introducing over year or 2 years to be able to get the rehabilitation, get the navigation, get what we talked about this morning. When you get out of jail, you and I probably wouldn't know this, but when you and I, if we were in jail and in there for a lot of times, basic things like underwear and jeans are kind of important. And, those things you wouldn't think about, but those are programs that they're even getting down to how do they get you out the door in a more meaningful way, assuming you want to go. And, putting those tools in your toolbox. And so we're using ARPA money in Hancock County to establish that program, and then we'd love to go for long-term funding program from the state of Indiana, and they're aware of that. But keeping them people locked up is not the goal.
That's right. That's right.
So
that's
yes,
helpful.
You've got a lot of things that are going to develop as we go down this track, and kind of important, and a lot of considerations. We've got a lot of experience to help you.
Excellent. That's good to hear, and it's good to hear what's happening in other communities as well. Thank you.
Sure.
Did I hear you recommending we should be in conversation with Hancock County then, you think?
Well, I can put you in, or someone that's really good here, I can put you in contact with someone with Hancock County Regional Hospital that is actually putting together the program, assuming she's very busy with developing this own program, but I'm suggesting that might be somebody to even talk, and you might say, wow, no, we're doing something different. That's fine. I believe in collaborating, putting people together, and sorry, that's not coming out good tonight. Cooperating with other entities or see what other people are doing. I was real impressed when she said she was going up to Allen County, because that's the second biggest city that has now a huge jail that they're in the process of doing. So if you give me I can make sure they have the time, and it's worth a look. The worst thing you can do is say, wow, no, that's not us. That's not us.
Of course, our job is to look at the money. And so we have to be laser focused on how are we going to finance it, and what is it going to cost the average citizen out there to help us pay for it.
And Marty, that's where I'm thinking as something like this is put together in different geographic locations, that then the focus point up to getting some long-term funding, it's going to be very, very tough on the taxpayers' back to do it without some type of additional funding. And so I'm thinking by having 3 legs of the stool or more legs of the stool, focusing up to a point, might get some more help from someone else, if you know who I mean. So, just things to consider.
Very interesting. Thank you. Getting all kinds of information out of this one.
Well, I told Marty, you know, always use me because believe me, I've done this for a while, and I also do it in a lot of different places. And there's a lot of good things going on, but a lot of things you got to be very, very careful.
Well, okay, so in just to, I'm sorry. I didn't
Go ahead.
Just, you talk about using you. Do you want us to funnel all questions through Jeff Cockrell? Is that the way you prefer
That's
to work?
probably the helpful focus point, because I've tried, you know, I do that in other counties. I don't do that in other counties, and we're, quite frankly, we're getting a call a day, and that's not efficient. And then it gets disseminated to everybody.
I was gonna say, why would you not utilize Molly since she is our council legal? I
Okay,
was
just because
wondering.
Jeff is always, that's the only reason why I made that assumption. That's fine if Molly wants to be the focus.
Yeah, that's up to you, but one focal point is what I was kind of saying. You know, if we can help, we're here to help.
Thank you. Okay, are there questions on this side? Because I'm beating the microphone. No? I got my head chair here. All right.
Stand up myself.
Oh.
Yeah, you ought to try back there on the preacher's bench.
Yeah, that's rough. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions,
So is there anything I can do? I know there's some discussion on number 11, and I thought about hanging around for number 11, and but I don't know how much discussion will be on number 11, but it is kind of intertwined with number 10.
yes, it is. Actually, just hang out if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're going to get really into it. It's mostly a presentation, but if I'd welcome your comment.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that'd be great.
I don't know if somebody's joining
All
me
right,
up here.
I have to kind of announce this, don't I? We're now moving to agenda item number 10, which is from our 11 from our council office. See, you get past like that 2-hour mark, and I am useless. Oh my goodness. So, Michelle, you are going to enlighten us with some great information.
This is, it's just a history of what council has done with regards to COLA. I was able to go back to at least
My eyes aren't what they used to be.
I
Can you
know, I
zoom in,
can't
please?
do it either.
some more, okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
That is okay. This, I was able to go back to 2009, so to get like a history of what we've done with regards to COLA. So, and this is also included in the packet for your information, and I think I sent it out. But this, the bottom part here explains what we have done for 2022 as well as 2023. So in 2022, we did an increase of the union merit deputies and correctional staff back effective to October 23rd, which was a 15% increase. And then for 2023, you did a 5% for Monroe County employees, and then an additional 1.67% for probation officers to bring them up to the 5% as well. So that's the history for the last couple of years. And so we normally use the Consumer Price Index as a guideline for our percentages with regards to what kind of a COLA you want to see. So We always use the December as the prior year. So for 2022, it was 7.5, and you decided with a 5%. So for 2024, we go with the 2022 amount, and it's currently at 6% for the December amount. So that's all I was really going to kind of give you is this is the numbers that you're kind of looking at. This is what we did for 2022 and 2023. So. And that's all I have. I wanted to get this on your radar because we're gonna, I'm already gearing up, trying to get things ready for budgets and starting to get forms, ready to be out to the department, so.
If I may, one important point in about 11:59 on Saturday night, what happens to the growth quotient?
Yeah.
If the growth quotient, we're predicting 5%, we put that already in here. I said 3 or 4 years ago, when the growth quotient gets to be X, watch for somebody to come after it. Well, guess what? And so if at 11:59, they decide the growth quotient is 3%, Houston, you might have a difficulty.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's great information. 11:59 on Saturday night, and the damage control after that is going to be so important because your property taxes might not be able to consume certain things.
That's a bit dire. Hi.
Just a quick comment, which I'm sure is completely unnecessary, but I just wanted to remind the council that as discussed last year when we were discussing COLA, the flat will kind of put us in a terrible position as far as our WIS study and so forth. It will make everything kind of unlevel and it won't be staggered, like the increase will not be as it should necessarily.
Tell me more about that. I don't quite understand it.
So if we're giving like the same amount to all, it's not like the increase as it should be. Like we're not doing a percent to each position, and we'll get behind the COLA. But as far as like right now, we did 5% last year, right? So what was it, 7.5% was the actual COLA increase. So we're behind 2.5% now. Not staying with the COLA is one thing, and the percent increase is different for each position, depending on the salary level.
Right.
So if we're doing $1 per position, I mean, that's good for some, not so good for others, for example.
Councilor Munson.
So what Ms. Gregory relayed is exactly why some years we would give a percentage increase and other years we would give a flat rate increase in order to keep the basic compensation schedule continuing, year to year without great changes, because you don't want to always reward those with the highest salary by giving them the biggest increases.
Yeah. But you're saying that it would be best to not do flat in general.
That's my opinion, and that's what was discussed last year. I feel it would be more fair just to give the increase that everyone should receive based on COLA. And I think that's, as we spoke with the auditor, that was her opinion as well.
Okay.
So I just wanted to relay that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure.
You looked at me like you had something.
I feel like I always have something to say, but whether I should say it or not.
Go for it.
All right. So one of the things that is really interesting about what Mr. Gaitas said, about this Friday evening, is we are also at the same time hearing from almost every single department that they cannot attract and retain staff. And I know that COLA is not the silver bullet, and I know it's not a panacea, but our department heads are really under the gun here. And so that's a consideration I think that I want to keep in mind too.
And that's, I guess that's, I don't disagree with that, but I'm sitting here looking at the numbers here. It looks like in your assumptions, you used 3% as a payroll escalator, right?
That is correct.
And so that, and even at that, we're still hemorrhaging in the general fund by several $1 million.
Now, one thing I will say is we did keep in, you'll notice the line on retention bonuses, we kept that moving into the future. So that's a pretty important point. I don't know, I didn't have the time to add all those dollars up, but that could be a potential other pool. I don't know, or was it here when you decided to do that and how you wanted to do that in the future?
Right. I don't know that we have,
Pretty critical point.
yeah, right.
Okay, that's actually in each of the departmental budgets then.
Yes,
That's-
sir, going forward in 24 and 25 and 26, because again, I don't know if that was deliberated.
Right.
And you basically escalated that at the same assumptions that you escalated the rest of the payroll then?
Correct.
3, 2, and 2.
Correct.
Okay.
Because, let's face it, I know exactly what, Peter, you said. I know. That's why I keep saying 2024 is going to be the toughest budget, because the demand on wages, but yet the resources might be restricted.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I'm curious why you said that. Why is 2024 going to be the toughest one?
Because you may have that perfect storm where, and I articulated to DLGF today. I said, on some of the counties and some of the cities, we're doing a pay matrix, and we're trying to increase gradually the impact of the wages. We know they're low back here. We know we need to get up here, but because of, basically the reserve margins couldn't take us going from here to here in 1 year, that the gradualism concept is in play, then you take and cut off the ball game from us that we all thought was going to happen, which was a common growth quotient with non-farm rolling 12, rolling 60 months. Now you've interjected something in the path, the glide path. So we were trying to go up in a lot of places gradually, and gradualism was even by department some places and things like that. Now you pull the rug out from under us on the revenue producer, that could get really tough. And that line down there called cash reserve could change significantly.
So it's really the growth quotient issue.
That's going to be number one.
Okay. Which we'll hear about shortly.
Pardon me?
Which we will hear about shortly.
We're hoping. I hope it's not a non-farm payroll rolling 80 months. And then we have to go all back and figure it. So.
Wow. Go ahead.
So I'm wondering if, how can I say this? We know that well, I think a lot of us think that the inflation will not last forever. I mean, it's already, if you look at the Midwest CPI, it's already trending down. Would it be wise to potentially use some of the ARPA funds as revenue replacement to kind of get us over the hump?
It's a possibility, but it does have an end date, okay? And so that's the problem, is we've had people trying that, and the sustainability is the issue, okay? And you've got so many things playing into your, so yes, but no. Jeff, I'm not trying to weasel around it, but it's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'm just seeing, the last December was 7.5 Midwest CPI. This year, 6. Next year, maybe 6. It's certainly not going to be 6 2 years from now.
Yeah, and we had some people, remember, I'm assuming you're taking the $10 million exception, so that the $10 million exception is is opened up, and we've had a city charge to that $10 million exception for an entire 6-month period, let the general fund grow so that they then have a way to manipulate or to work through the difficulties that occur in the future.
But we haven't consumed that $10 million by a long shot. Bree, do you remember how much out of the lost revenue category we've actually spent?
It's good to call it lost revenue.
I don't think we've obligated anything yet in that
So
category.
there may still be a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, and keep in mind, the lost revenue in the statute, in that 863 pages, that was the concept that was in the interim rule, and the final rule has more of a revenue, more of a $10 million, window. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, we are not using that. We have not jumped through that window.
I don't think you have. We have not assisted in the application of, or in the upload of your documents. So, but that's something to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Counselor Decker?
You may not be able to, thank you, by the way, for everything. You may not be able to answer this, but I want to draw upon your wisdom a little bit. Did you see counties last year, whereas we did some things around retention and COLA, did you see counties that didn't do anything or didn't do much? And are those counties in a tougher spot?
So
with
yes
some of these?
and yes.
Okay.
Martin County would have loved to do it. Martin County is 50% tax exempt. They don't have the wherewithal. They got $1 million head handed to them that they had to start, the EMS pulled out from Knox County. They got $1 million EMS problem that came to them in one full swoop. So yes, that was very, very tough. Some counties were able to do it. That was my point with the 5% growth quotient. So they started stepping up because they were outdated 10% on their wages. So they were striving to make it up over a period of years, but might have a further difficulty.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm wondering, given the fruitfulness of this discussion, if we want to also have a discussion at our next meeting once we know more, or maybe not next meeting, but I mean we can. But in a future meeting, it would be interesting to know more.
After the 6:30 numbers, sounds like maybe might be a.
It would give us a better idea of where we stand and.
So July work session?
Well, and does the county auditor, do you guys put out a percent to use in your 144s to the department heads? Yeah, do you tell them what to use in 144s? Okay, so then you wouldn't need it by then. Okay.
What we've done in the past is just tell them to budget flat, so whatever we have for this year, they budget
Gotcha.
the same.
Okay. And 144, if you explain, that's just the payroll document that comes from the department heads. Yeah.
We could always tell them something, but
Well,
we've always posed it as a question. Like, we want to tell them flat. Good grief. Sorry.
It's just always hard to do the budget before you do the budget.
Right.
That's my problem with the whole 144 system.
Yeah.
How do you come up with that number unless you see the big picture?
Right, because we have COLA committees sometimes in some counties, and the COLA committees are coming out with 6 or 7%, just like you did, and they say, Greg, and I'm like, I don't think we'll do that.
Well, right,
We can do that.
our commissioners tried to tell us 9% this last year.
Yeah.
That was helpful.
Houston, there may be a difficulty.
With council guidance, we've just always had them do flat, and then that way we kind of have an idea, and then we're not actually selecting a COLA or anything until we, know exactly what the absolute numbers are gonna be, so, and then
And-
we make last minute changes.
And
So-
here's what we're also doing in some counties is developing a payroll spreadsheet so that, you know, we can know do you already have that? And by department or by fund? And so, yeah, and so that's very helpful to be able to, you know, because I can use the final results of what you come up with, but changing in each and every sustainability would be, but so great. If you've got that, that's very helpful. So my opinion, you should be talking about the budget every meeting, but I'm a budget guy. Or at least thinking about it hard.
And lots of thinking, lots of thinking. Other questions?
If not, I'll quit taking up your time and I'll.
No.
This has been amazing.
Really helpful, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that. And
And we do hope that you'll consider coming back in July.
yeah, or,
If not before, anytime you want.
yeah, or whatever we need and, you know, just,
We can just put a permanent seat here
contact
at the
Molly or Jeff. Sorry, Molly, I didn't mean
Yeah, I'm
to lessen
sorry.
you.
Why not Molly?
But thank you very much and
Thank you. Appreciate it.
a little
Thanks.
bit.
I've got 14 minutes left on my parking meter, by the way.
I know, I do too. It's kind of funny. We are at number 12 then, I believe, unless there are concerns for Kim on the COLA. Kim on the COLA. All right, let's move to number 12.
Council, I move to approve the summary minutes of September 15, 2022, the budget work session number 5, and March 28, 2023, work session as presented.
Second.
Are there any changes or questions or, all right. Any public comment on our minutes? All right, don't see any. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And that passes. And council comments, are there any council comments? Yes.
I just have to say this. This Friday night, at least I'm sleeping out for Beacon. That's going to be 7 to 8 p.m. on Friday, April 28th. I'm going to be there with my daughter, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And I just want to point out that I have raised more money than Trent Deckard, and I don't think he can catch up.
I also, if I may, join my colleague, I'll also be sleeping out.
The contest is on.
Counselor Iverson.
Oh. All right, we'll see.
Okay.
But it's for a good cause. It's for people experiencing homelessness. This is a really welcoming shelter. It's the only secular LGBTQ plus affirming year-round emergency shelter for homeless adults in the region. So it's a great cause.
Thank you for reminding us about that. Any other comment? Yes.
I was just gonna say, that I am very thankful for the leadership of the county council, and trying to do better when it comes to public engagement, and the thought of us doing the Community Justice Fiscal Response Committee. That's a lot of letters there.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I would say that. I'm just gonna have to name it all out. But I do think that it's very important. I do think that we've all received so many different types of emails over the past weekend, all the way up until the time that we started this meeting.
Yeah.
And we've heard from a lot of people, whether it is via email, whether it is out and about during Little Fog weekend. I did not participate, but just was out and about, and was safe. And it's just, I'm very thankful and grateful for the community conversations that hopefully will continue, as we all have been asking for input from various groups or organizations and voices that are needed at the table, but somehow have not been a chance to be a part of that. So I just wanted to say that I'm very thankful for that, and I'm looking forward to May 9th.
Thanks. Councilor Munson.
I just want to follow this up by thanking Councilor Iverson for his initial drafting and to all my colleagues for the work I know that they will put into looking at this document. And I'm so grateful to be able to tell the many people who I know are paying attention to us and are anxious to hear about what we are going to do, that they will be able to see next Friday afternoon a document that they will be able to review and respond to.
Yep.
So thank you, all of you.
Thanks. Counselor Deckard.
I did want to add on to that to say that in local government, in every level of government, but local government particularly, we have an absolute obligation to get things done for the people that we serve and represent, all of those people. And we must, no matter what the obstacle, we have to get those things done, and we have to do them efficiently and well. And well is a hard thing to get, but it has to be done. There's no choice. And I think about all the issues that we're facing in this community, and I hear constantly from people who are frustrated by things that have been simmering and not getting done, and they must be done and done well. And so I'm grateful for this draft. I'm grateful for the leadership, our members on that committee who have been beating that drum, and I look forward to that as well.
Thank you. And I believe that's all for council comment. So this meeting is adjourned.